This video is going to be a review of the M4 Mac Mini. Before I do the review, I want to go over some adapters and cables that you might need to purchase if you buy an M4 Mac Mini. You can tell this right here is a Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 2. This right here is Thunderbolt 2 to HDMI. You would expect this to work with the M4 Mac Mini, but I want to let people know that it did not. I had to buy a Thunderbolt 4 cable to HDMI in order for this Mac Mini to give me dual monitors. The bottom monitor is just hooked into the HDMI port. So that's something some of you might need to spend money on. Why it didn't work, I don't know. It should have. This device right here, along with these other devices here, do allow me to use the Canopus ADVC-110 to capture VHS tapes. What you see on the computer screen, whether you use Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro, or DaVinci Resolve, looks kind of jerky. But if you have third-party hardware, it plays back buttery smooth. And I really would recommend people get the Ultra Studio Monitor 3G. I know some people are going to say, well, then I have to get a TV as well, like a 24-inch TV. I wouldn't expect people to get a full-fledged Sony AV monitor that costs $10,000 or $20,000. If you get an M4 Mac Mini, you also want to consider getting an external storage solution. If you look at a device like this, it can take the solid state drives, but you're better off getting the older style mechanical hard drives because they're usually less expensive. If you do decide to get a device like this, you can easily get an adapter like this and it'll plug in this way. And then it's a USB-C cable that will connect into here. It's pretty convenient to be able to, use these type of adapters. This is another storage solution. It does take the mechanical hard drives plus the smaller solid state drives. This has the same connector in the back. All of these adapters are USB-C cable ready. So this right here is also handy to have, and you might want to pick up one of these, but it's just a coupling device. In case you have a 1-foot USB-C cable and a 2-foot USB-C cable, and you really need a 3-foot long cable, you can connect them together. I imagine some of you are thinking, is it better to just get a cable or is it better to get the adapters? It depends. I have USB-C cables already. So for myself, it was better to get an adapter with this type of connector and then the USB-C cable could connect in the back. But some of you might decide to just get the actual cable that has this type of connector at one end and then the USB-C at the other. I got this type of adapter, which will allow me to connect into this type of USB jump drive. This is the micro USB or mini USB. I get them confused all the time, but then it goes to USB-C, and that is for my control surface. This will connect into my audio board. It's old school USB-B version, where on this side it's USB-C. Now, you can connect this type of USB device into the Mac Mini if you get an adapter, or you can just get a USB jump drive that has the USB-C connector on it. And then I got this card reader. And if you look, it blends in really nice with the Apple computers. It's also white trim instead of black. So if you have one of the iMacs, this thing will work perfect. But these are some of the devices I had to buy in order to bring my M4 Mac Mini up to par with my Windows PC. Some of you might be spending $75 in cables and extensions and adapters, and other people might spend $100. It just depends on how many devices you have and how many cables and adapters you're going to need. Like other people have stated, why couldn't Apple have a couple of the old school USB connectors on the back and a couple of the old school USB connectors on the front? My M4 Mac Mini has the basic M4 chip. It is not the M4 Pro. I ended up getting 24 gigabytes of RAM because the 16 seemed a little bit too weak if I want to live stream and show people how to use After Effects and Premiere Pro together during a live stream. I thought that extra RAM would come in handy. Do you need to have 48 gigabytes of RAM? It wouldn't hurt if you're editing large files like from the Red 1 camera or ProRes or even like 6K B-RAW. When we talk about editing different files, if you have a mirrorless camera from 2 or 3 years ago, or you have one of the DSLR cameras from like 5 or 6 years ago, a lot of those use the H.264 video codec. And if you have a USB jump drive or an SD card that can read and write at 150 megabytes per second or even 100 megabytes per second, you can edit multiple layers of that video codec right off the USB jump drive. I could plug this in here, use an SD card, and edit right off the SD card. Like I said, if your camera uses H.264 video codec, you couldn't do it if it's the Red 1 codec or 6K B-RAW. But I didn't want to have a USB jump drive or a card reader dangling off my Mac Mini, so that's why I decided to get the 512. I also want to say that some of you are thinking, hey, I could just get the $600 version of the M4 Mac Mini and edit all day long. The $600 M4 Mac Mini works, and it works pretty good. Like some people said, because it only has 16 gig of RAM, it might actually start to cache out files to the solid state drive. And if you got the 256 gigabyte solid state drive, like people say, it's going to be reading and writing from there a lot, and you might actually wear out that hard drive. That's only a concern if you're a hardcore video editor and you're a freelance video editor. If you only make 1 or 2 YouTube videos a month, and that's why you're getting an M4 Mac Mini, that probably wouldn't be an issue. So, you know, there's pros and cons, like people say, about getting the basic one. For some people, the basic one will work just fine. I want to let people know I'm very happy with my M4 Mac Mini purchase. I'm glad I just got the basic M4 chip instead of the M4 Pro. I'm glad I got the 24 gigabytes of RAM, and I am glad I got the 512 gigabyte solid state drive. I did have buyer's remorse for just a couple days, and I almost returned mine. I was considering getting the M4 Pro chip, but I'm better off saving that money and maybe investing in a brand new Mac Mini in another 2 or 3 years and wait till like the M6 or the M7 chip comes out, and then I'll get an M7 Pro chip. That's what my plan is in the not so distant future. But if you're a freelance video editor, by all means get the top of the line M4 Pro chip, get the 48 gigabytes of RAM in there, and you'll have a really nice video editing system. My system could do quite a lot as is, but it's not my main editing system. I still use my Windows PC as my main video editing system, where some of you, your new Mac Mini might be your main video editing system.